All right. Welcome, everyone. Dorsey's Resource. First, before we get started, this video is for educational, entertainment, and informational purposes only. Please understand everyone's individual circumstance or situation may be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his or her homework and research into the matter being discussed. This information is not to be construed as legal advice. In the event you feel you need to seek a competent professional, it is encouraged you do so at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource is not liable or responsible for any misuse of this information. With that being said, everyone is responsible for their own actions. All rights are reserved. Now, I want to talk about a topic. I got a book with me about astrology. Facebook memes are flawed. I brought a book. This was given to me some years ago by a former coworker, by the way. It woke me up. But I wanted to talk about a lot of people who post these memes. I've been meaning to talk about this for a while. This is not a subject that I normally cover, a topic, but it's been kind of a pet peeve of mine, by the way, I wanted to delve into. From a lot of posts I see not only on Facebook, but however, social media in general. It's the astrology memes are flawed because I'm going to go over some things dealing with astrology. You guys see I have a book. This book is outdated in terms of it ran out in 2015 as far as the new babies being born, but it people who are older than 2015, they you can have your whole chart done. Reason astrology memes are flawed. A lot of people don't know you have more than one sign other than your sun sign. And some of you all might say, what am I talking about? And I might talk about Eastern astrology. This is called Western astrology. Like over here in this part of the world, it's the Western part, like where China, other parts, Asia, that's the Eastern part of the world. So you have Eastern astrology, which is separate. Then you also have the Hindus or Indian culture. They have a form of astrology, as well as other cultures or ethnic groups out there, by the way. So I just wanted to talk about, like, you have Leos, Gemini, Sagittarius, Libras, Aries, Scorpio, Taurus, Capricorn, Cancer, Virgo, and Pisces, by the way. And I want to let you guys know, even though I grew up Christian, this was like a taboo subject, by the way. Turn this radio down. And this was like a taboo subject. So being that the way that I was raised, a lot of people are taught that this type of information is witchcraft, this, that, and the other. Witchcraft gets into which craft are you? Which craft are you part of? Or they would say this delves into the occult. Sort of, kind of, but not fully. A lot of people don't understand these concepts where they derive from historically. The word occult is a Latin term for hidden. It means something that's hidden, a secret that's unknown. You can't see it. It's hidden. And this knowledge was sacred many years ago amongst the monarchs and royalty. You had to be, there was a way you had to be initiated to gain or receive this knowledge. That's where the mystery schools, if you heard of the mystery schools years ago, that's where they came into play, where only certain people were allowed to access this type of information, by the way. And I'm going to go into the reasons, some of the reasons why it's accurate. They say, for example, you know how whenever there's a full moon, how the moon controls tides in the ocean. Like the tides, the waves rise up real high around the times of full moons. Hospitals have a tendency to receive more cases during that time period. Thank you for joining the chat. I'm gonna acknowledge you in the chat when I get a chance, as well as if more people show up. And feel free, those who are watching, feel free to chime in the discussion if you would like. This is also Q&A, even though I didn't put that. If you have any questions or any input, feel free to jump in and chime in on this, because I just wanted to kind of go over, when I see a lot of those memes on Facebook, you have actually a full chart where you have more than one sign. That sign that's based on your birthday, let's say if you were born in January, that's generally Capricorn, and towards the end of January where the cusp gets into Aquarius, and then you get the Aquarius side that goes, the latter part of February gets into the Pisces sign. Then once you get towards like the end of Pisces, then you go into Aries, etc. But that's not just your only sign. You have an ascendant sign, which is just as powerful as your sun sign. And a lot of people don't know your what your ascendant sign is. So I'm going to go over that, by the way, and I'm reading so you guys can see from the ascendant sign. This is really important because a lot of people don't know. A lot of those memes are not accurate. And by the way, it says your sun sign, what I just went over, that no two people born under the same sign are identical. There's differences. For example, that each type is subject to numerous modifications wrought by the environment, both physical and social, and by heredity. The royal daughter, it's just saying in general, and the underprivileged child, or known as the commoners, say may have been born at the same time or place or moment in the palace, and it says slum, where I'm reading from, will have the same basic thinking and urges, but their characteristics will vastly differ based on different circumstances. Conditioning will modify the essential purity of the archetype of that sign that they're influenced by. Because mind you, when I was giving the example of the moon, the tides in the ocean, they say 70% of our body is made up of water. Therefore, the Earth's gravitational pull, the magnetic field, has an effect on us. Like when you were born, there's like a gravitational field that stays with you your entire life. And your ascendant rising sign is basically based on the hour that you were born. Now, I encourage you all, I did give a disclaimer, to do your own research. But this has been a pet peeve of mine because I see a lot of women, a lot of people, women in general have a tendency to be more interested in astrology and think that it's more factual. But I'm going over the reasons why a lot of it is flawed if you don't know your full chart, especially if you don't know your ascendant, rising sign, and your moon. Your ascendant sign is just as powerful as your sun sign, and it could actually be the opposite. So both your signs could conflict with one another. Like give away, like one of my signs is Aquarius, but my ascendant rising sign actually conflicts with my sun sign. So and then it's important to know what your moon is in. That's your third most powerful sign, because the moon deals with emotions, so that can govern the emotional part of your personality based on your archetype, your characteristics. Because the way the polarity works with the planet, we're earthly beings. We have on a much greater, deeper level, we have frequencies in a magnetic field that governs us, that has an influence over us from the time that you were born. Now, I know this knowledge, it sounds very esoteric, but the example that I gave, similar to how the moon, when the tides in the ocean causes the waves to rise and go up higher than they normally are, and they say 70% or over 80% of our body, just estimating, is made up of water. Therefore, it causes changes in us because of the gravitational magnetic field that's shifting around us we cannot visibly see, if you follow me so far. So this is why I'm kind of going over this information. So the last part of the sun sign is important, as basic as the sun sign character. It is only part of the story, what I'm reading from. The all-important influence of the ascendant, which is the rising sign, is another vital consideration. That ascendant sign I'm about to go over now is what's just as important as the sign. When people say, they may say, well, I'm a Scorpio, or I'm an Aquarius. That doesn't mean that you're going to be the same as some other Scorpio or whatever. You could be totally different, by the way. And this book proves this. And a lot of people who give predictions and stuff, this shows the flaws, that they're actually inaccurate. And a lot of people individually that post these memes online are not aware. You can look this up. Don't take my word for what I'm saying, but I encourage you. This book that I'm going off of, this is actually an older book. I've had other astrology books, but this book is called Astroanalysis. You can actually find copies maybe on eBay, Amazon. It's outdated. It ran out in 2015, but you can still do someone's chart for many adults. And it goes back where it has a chart in the back that goes really far back into like the early 1900s, as far back as 1910, by the way. In this book, I had every book in the series except for Virgo, and I have a cousin that's a Virgo, but I actually had ordered years later. But this book in particular was given to me for free by a coworker. He surprised me years ago. A guy I used to work with, I was in a break room, and he went to it was like a universal church that was like an astrology church that went over this type of information, and I had never heard of it before. but he found an interest that he wanted to share with me. So he surprised me, said, "You have a moment?" And we were on a lunch break. I said, "Yeah." So we went right over to Borders Books, which wasn't that far away from where we were at the time at our job. And he, to make a long story short, he showed me how to do my whole chart in here, which has your different, the different planets when the time you were born were in a different astrological sign. But those signs govern part of your personality. So that one sun sign isn't your main personality. And this is where I'm proving that a lot of people that post these memes are flawed. Now, a friend of mine, to give you on a side note, put me up on Eastern astrology, which is like the Chinese version or Manchurian version. And it's highly accurate. I actually think their astrology, I like it a lot better. It kind of goes by the years, but you still have to look up the dates. Generally in the beginning of the year, you have to look up for whatever year it is specifically. The Chinese New Year starts on a new date. So generally it'll be earlier in the year, but it'll leave that previous sign and go into a different animal sign. In the Chinese chart, the archetypes are based off of different animal characteristics. Like, for example, you have the dragon, you have the tiger, you have the monkey. The boar is also known as the pig. You have the sheep. And then you have different elements, just like similar to Western astrology. You have different signs are based on different elements, by the way. Like Leo is a fire sign. Aquarius is an air sign. Gemini is an air sign. Sagittarius is a fire sign. Libra is an air sign, just like Aquarius and Gemini. Aries is a fire sign, just like Sagittarius and Leo, by the way. Scorpio, I believe Scorpio is a water sign. Taurus is an earth sign. An earth sign just like Capricorn is an earth sign. And Virgo is an earth sign. And then Pisces and Cancer are water signs just like Scorpio. So the Eastern chart has different elements, but it also includes metal and wood. But don't quote me, it has earth and fire. Because in my Eastern chart, I won't say for the time being right now, my element is earth. But I've noticed that even in the Eastern chart, what I love about the uniqueness compared to the Western chart, when a friend of mine, he actually put me up on this. He has books because he studied not only Eastern philosophy, but Eastern medicine. And it ties in where Eastern medicine is very powerful. And this was even by some Western doctors and scientists have admitted this, by the way. I found out about the superiority of their medicine and things because their culture actually goes back very far. And there's other different ethnic groups, like in the Indian culture, you have like the Vedic chart. They have like their version, and they have like a pre-diagnostic period of a history where they have one of the oldest languages on the planet, just as well as the Manchurian people, Pali and Sanskrit, one of the oldest languages. Now, don't quote me, I'm not an expert, but I'm just giving you guys to share how a friend of mine explained this to me. And once he shared this with me, I would say as a figure of speech, my super abilities kicked in, where I immediately thought about a lot of the previous girlfriends that I had dated in the past. It all became clear based on the Eastern chart why I was compatible with them, why I was not. Now in the Western chart, it's a little bit more difficult to get actually a more accurate reading, because the sign that most people go by is generally within their monthly period. But however, your ascendant sign is important to know. It just as much as your sun sign is based on the hour you were born. And you generally will not know that information unless your parent told you, or unless you have a copy of your birth certificate. It'll generally will have the hour that you were born specifically. But I can't speak for everybody because it might be flawed with some people. Some people's birth certificates actually have the wrong date. I met someone who stated this to me because years ago, you know, their records were not the same or as accurate as we got further into the future when they created these things, by the way. But the time period is really important because the ascendant sign goes by, let's say, the hour you were born. Let's say if you were born at 8 o'clock in the morning, well, when it hits 9 o'clock, it might go from Aries into Scorpio, but there's a particular order. I'm just giving an example. So if you don't know this, then that's more difficult in order to try to find your soulmate or your partner, your love partner that you're going to be compatible with, where you have a high compatibility rate. It's going to be more difficult unless that person shares the hour that they were born. You see how I'm proving the flaws in the Facebook memes. If you watch this whole video, I'm going over action-packed information if you follow me so far. But I want to thank everybody for joining me. I'm going to go to the chat real quick to acknowledge everyone in the chat section. So guys, bear with me. Thank you guys for watching so far. Let me scroll up. Zamir Ahmed says, love you, big brother. Appreciate you for watching. Thank you for joining. Zamir Ahmed says, looking forward to see over the dinar secret reveal. Okay. Camilla Barnes says, good morning. Greetings to you, Camilla. Appreciate you joining. You've been watching for a while. King Oso says, sun, moon, and rising. Yes. Supreme Carter says, thank you, bro. Appreciate you. Money Boy in the building. Money Boy Film says, my birthday was May 7th. Okay, you just celebrated a birthday. Happy belated birthday. And I believe that's a sign of Taurus, by the way, what I know offhand. But what I was just going over, Eastern chart generally would go by the year. So I know by you being born closer to a middle part of the year, whichever year you were born, you can look that up easily. And I highly suggest it because in my opinion, I love the Eastern chart better. I think even the powers that be go by that as well. That's a whole nother discussion, how Hollywood famous people that get initiated in a high-level secret societies, high-level orders, it's rumored that they arrange marriages and stuff between Hollywood actors, entertainers, sports athletes, etc. By the way, that's like considered high-level information. By the way, Mary Saunders says, shalom, sir. Shalom to you. Greetings to you. Thank you for joining, Miss Saunders. And Mary says, happy belated birthday. Money Boy Film says, thanks at Mary. Money Boy says, Earth. Okay, yes. Taurus is an Earth sign. That's correct. Darren Jackson says, that's some deep knowledge. Okay, thank you, bro. I appreciate it. So I just wanted to kind of go over and to read some notes from this book that the planets, the different planets you have, remember the sun is stating there's only one influence. And by far, it is one of the most important, but however, it doesn't govern or dictate your entire character, your personality archetype. Your archetypal, your character is different, where the ascendant sign more so deals with your personality. It has an influence on the formation of your personality. And it also represents a response to your environment and also how other people see you, by the way. So just going over some more in-depth information, and these signs are also tied in with the planets like the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus. Like my sign, just for example, my sun sign being Aquarius has two planets it's ruled by, and it has a co-ruler. It's ruled by Uranus is the main ruler, but the co-ruler is Saturn. And Saturn deals with the court system. Years ago, it was stated that they practiced Saturnalian worship during a certain time period. I can't remember which particular civilization. However, this is why to this day, the reason why people get a ring around the finger, that's to symbolize the rings around the planet Saturn. And the reason why judges, when people go to graduations, they wear black robes. Same robes, very similar to what judges wear in the court system. There's symbology that's connected to these things. By the way, that's why Saturn deals with the court system. And Aquarius, by the way, has a lot of Aquariuses may go into the court system as far as occupations. There's other occupations Aquariuses go into, like as far as teachers, when the different signs give a breakdown on your occupational characteristics that tie in to your personality. But also this is not a coincidence why a lot of Aquariuses become judges or lawyers or whatnot, for example, because their co-ruler is Saturn, and Saturn is a planet that deals with judgment or governing. To go deep, I'm by no means am I expert, but these are some of the things I've looked into. By the way, Aquarius is also an air sign. For example, it's stated that one of the archetypes of Aquarius is the water bear. For example, get to some other ones, just like Leo has the lion. Did you know Leo, each sign has an opposite? By the way, I'm gonna go over the opposite. Leo is the opposite of Aquarius. And did you know that each sign, you can look this up, I found out from this book, gives off a positive and a negative polarity. Aquarius gives off a positive. For example, I can't remember offhand for all of them. I know Cancer, it gives off a negative. And remember, this doesn't mean necessarily good and bad, but just as well as your body, where you balance your health out between your body being too acidic versus alkaline. You want to be right in the middle where you have the appropriate pH balance, because too much of one can still put the body out of balance, even if it's too much alkaline. Or in the Eastern chart, for example, you might be too yang, which represents fire. If you're too yin, that's like water, like could be on the lower end. But the key is to be like right in the middle where they both connect, but not at too extreme on one end or the other. So the key, that's why the universe, the yin and yang, represents balance, by the way. You also have to go over, I know the Sagittarius symbol, some of these things, I'm not going to go into the history, you can look up for yourself, has the centaur. Sagittarius is a fire sign, which people who are born in fire signs, it's not a coincidence, they have a lot of energy. They're very proactive, by the way, just to kind of give you guys an idea. Capricorn and Virgo, those are earth signs. I believe there's another earth sign, Taurus, by the way. Earth is grounded when you understand the elements. When you're of an earth sign, you're grounded. Like in my Eastern chart, I have an earth element. So it's what I love about the earth sign, it's grounded, but earth can empower fire. The way a friend of mine was explaining, I'll have to delve deeper, but earth strengthens fire. But fire in the balance, like when you're dating a couple versus someone who's a water sign, let's say if a Leo and Scorpio hook up, for example, this is just the basic part, but it's important for both individuals to find out their ascendant and their moon. But since Leo is fire, Scorpio is water. So water and fire together can, depending on the personality of the person, fire can overtake water, can heat up water, can become too hot. But water can become, can expand or become erratic, or can flush out or flood fire or earth. Or can cause earth to turn into mud. So when you get into the deeper aspects, just kind of give you guys a basic idea of how you match the characteristics. It's stated that since opposites attract, sometimes when you marry a person that seems completely opposite of you, you're compatible. But there's different variables involved. And the main variable is important to find out that the person's like I went over their ascendant sign and their moon. For example, Aquariuses are compatible with Geminis. Believe it or not, Aquariuses are also compatible with Sagittarius. Sagittarius is a fire sign. You might think it's the opposite, but it's another personality archetype of the Sagittarius, which is different from the Leo. Leo is a fire sign, but it doesn't, there's like a conflict between, because it's stated Leos have a tendency to be arrogant or narcissistic because they feel that because the lion is the leader of the jungle, they're dominant. Generally, they're going to be alpha females or alpha males. It's not a coincidence. They're going to have a lot of energy. They're going to be very proactive in their personality traits, their characteristics, you know, meaning they're not going to be lazy or whatever, like certain other signs. So this has an influence going back to the magnetic field when we were born, and when there's the full moon, how the moon can have influence on the tides in the ocean. And a lot of our body, a large percentage, is made up of water. So to kind of give you guys a synopsis of how this astrology works. So this just some other signs that are direct opposite. Did you know Scorpio is an opposite of Taurus? This is why some Scorpios or Taurus might conflict and not get along with one another. But this doesn't mean that this will always be, because sometimes each individual, they might have ascendant sign or moon that might be more compatible with each other. That's why it's still important to get a basis of your whole chart. But in the Eastern chart, it's not as complicated, and I can pick up people's personalities. When a friend of mine told me about the Eastern chart, for example, I told him as a figure of speech, is like my superpowers kicked in, by the way. I just used my former girlfriends as an example, and I saw why I was very compatible, or I had compatibility with one, some versus more compatibility versus others, based on, like in the Eastern chart, for example, some signs that are compatible. For example, sheeps are compatible with rabbits. Sheeps are compatible with boars. Boars, also known as the pig. they're compatible. They have a high compatibility rate, and sheeps are compatible with horses. I'm giving you a secret. I was going to share this for another video, but the Eastern chart means you have the universe on your side. It's one of the ways to find your soulmate. And I know some of you all may have another question offhand, is can you combine the Western chart with the Eastern chart? Yes, you can. I actually found a breakdown. So there's an individual, a couple individuals I discovered where I'm not only compatible with them in my Western chart, but I'm compatible in the Eastern chart. So that means we have a high chance of being soulmates where I'm compatible with certain females. The only difference is based on personalities and your upbringing, kind of what I went over in the past to get a more accurate reading, by the way. So this is just some of the signs that I know of offhand, by the way, but you can look up in each of the different charts your compatibility rate. But that's just to give you guys an idea of certain signs that are compatible with each other. But to go over things before I close out, the opposites. Gemini is the opposite of Sagittarius. So when I went over, Leo is the opposite of Aquarius. Gemini is direct opposite sign of Sagittarius. Libra is the opposite of Aries. Scorpio is the opposite of Taurus. Because I had a friend of mine, actually my sensei that trained me in martial arts, he stated he was a Taurus, but his son was a Scorpio. And he was mentioning why he felt him and his son bumped heads once he found that out when I told him. But that's just based off the sun sign. I found out his ascendant sign is Aquarius, just like mine, where my son is Aquarius, but his ascendant is Aquarius, but his sun sign is Taurus. So that's why, you know, in personality archetypes, why certain people are cool with one another or get along too. This governs that, has a lot of influence. That's why it's important in the Western chart over here in America, which most people go by, like when you see these Facebook memes, it's important to have your whole chart done to get a more accurate reading, especially for dating relationships. If you're trying to find romance or your soulmate, or find out if you're going to be compatible with a coworker, a brother, sister, siblings, etc. This applies to that, just like the Eastern chart. By the way, Capricorn is the opposite of Cancer, by the way, which Capricorn is an earth sign. Cancer, I believe that's a water sign. Virgo is an earth sign, and Virgo is the direct opposite of Pisces. I'm going by this book right here I took notes from. So I just wanted to kind of give you guys an idea, kind of my pet peeve when people share these memes on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or Snapchat about astrology, or because you're a Scorpio, that's this, that, and the other, or you're a freak dealing with sex, because Scorpios are supposedly known for being freaks when it comes to dating and sex or whatever, but that doesn't always necessarily hold true. I've heard the same thing about Tauruses, but once again, it's important to have your entire chart done, by the way, to get a more accurate reading, and if you're dating someone, to find out their ascendant sign. So just keep that in mind, by the way. I'm your host, John Dorsey, at Dorsey's Resource. If you want to follow me, you can follow me at Facebook, at Dorsey's Resource. Of course, obviously, I'm on YouTube at Dorsey's Resource. I'm also on Twitter at Dorsey's Resource as well. And with that being said, guys, don't forget to thumbs up. You're welcome to comment and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, you can hit the notification bell at the bottom. Whenever I put out new content, YouTube will notify you. Thank you guys for joining me. Until next time, take care.